Celtic had the chance to go top of the table at Tynecastle this afternoon, but couldn't take it after a game littered with serious VAR decisions. But there's all that and so much more to cover. This is Tino with the Final Whistle Show, joined here by Brydo. Brydo, your initial response to that game at Tynecastle?
Bit of anger, I suppose. Disappointment. Big chance to kind of have a wee break for the league for a while. I think there's a couple of weeks we'll be playing the next league game. A chance to just finish that on top, and we didn't take the opportunity, albeit not really aided by decisions, if you like. But even with 10 men, I felt that we could have done a lot more than we did.
Do you think that's the thing? Because it's easy and lazy just to come in and blame VAR and decisions, and we'll get to that because they've played a huge part. But ultimately, it's still in Celtic's gift. Yes, you're 10 men v 11, but there's no doubt it's such a long way back when it goes to that stage. What do you think? Just in kind of general terms, Celtic's fault, VAR fault, ref fault. What's your kind of balance on it?
It's just breaking up a bit, maybe. Decisions go against teams, right? That's fine. 10 men after 50 minutes is tough, and it is tough. But I just feel we were passive, and in the moments that count, we just didn't do what we have to do. When you're down to 10 men, you're not going to get as much. You're not going to get as much control of the game. So you need to, when you've got the ball, we need to protect it. And I don't think we did that well. And if there's too many players that either didn't want to make forward passes and take that slight risk, or when they got it, their control was bad, or their final pass was bad, and several players were worse than others. And I don't want to, name the same names and stuff. I thought Greg Taylor was terrible. I thought Iwata was poor. I thought Maida's, he runs so hard and he runs a lot, and it's important when you've got 10 men. But his quality just, the ball just, decision making. I thought Ida had a good game, and Kyogo made a difference when he came on. But when Kyogo came on, I felt the shape didn't really help us. It helped us in the moments he was there, but it just didn't help us get a grip of the game for long enough periods to sustain any kind of pressure. And ultimately, we were feeding off scraps really in the end.
That's what it came down to. We weren't creating clear-cut chances, and actually, to a huge extent, we were struggling really to get out our own half. Hearts pressed high and aggressively, but that's easy to do, or easier to do when you're 11v10. It completely changes the dynamics of the game, and it nullifies our high press. That's a big part of what Celtic do. And without Yang, you need to shuffle the pack, and it really does change things. Let's get to the key moments. So Celtic are the ones that get the benefit of not a VAR decision, just the referee in play spots it as a foul in the box, and Celtic have got a huge opportunity to go 1-0 up. Adam Idah, he's been great since he came. I thought he was decent again today. He's the man who scored 2 penalties in Edinburgh already against Hibs not so long ago. And you're comfy and confident that he's the man stepping up. I don't want to be harshly critical of a guy who misses a penalty. All players, the best players, miss penalties. Henrik Larsson missed penalties. Roberto Baggio missed a penalty. Lionel Messi's missed penalties against Joe Hart, no less. It happens in football, but it's a huge opportunity, and we've not taken it.
No, and I think missing penalties, like you say, is part of the game. I just don't get the thought process. If you're going down the middle, then smash it down the middle. It's not that difficult to hit the ball hard and straight. I get if you're trying to find the corner, you've got to be a bit more careful and you've got to take a bit of power off it. But he didn't do that. He went to go down the middle. And if he's doing the whole having a look to see where Clark's moving to, then he wouldn't put it down the middle. He would just roll it to the side. So I don't know why, if you're going down the middle, he doesn't hit it with some degree of power and give the goalkeeper no chance to save it. And it's just, I thought it was poor. And when we missed it, I thought, no, it's going to be one of those days, really, because Tynecastle things, they get a buzz off that. They got a positivity that we should be 1-0 up, and we blew it. And and obviously what happened a couple of minutes later obviously then changes the whole game in its entirety.
Yeah, and it's early in the game, so it's 13 minutes we get and miss the penalty, and then it's 16 minutes with Yang sending off. as I said, we're dead easy to come on here and go, refs, VAR, all that kind of stuff. But all that said, if that is a sending off, Brydo, give him a bogey. There was different chat, maybe at half time or whatever on Twitter and the likes, and some folks saying, well, we'd be screaming for a red card. No, you wouldn't. See, if you're a football person in any way, if you either know football through watching it all your life or you've played at any level of football, kids, amateur football, if you've played ball or watched ball, that's not a sending off and you'd never be calling for it. It's a flick of the boot. But there's the thing, you know, I'd like to know the interpretation of it from the VAR ref. Is it endangering an opponent? You know, is it reckless? I'm not sure it's either of those, you know, and this is where it becomes subjective. But there's also a thing where the referee, Don Robertson, he deals with that at the time, right? He sees it in play. He sees what goes on. He's pretty close to it. Yellow card. And yellow card for me is absolutely the right decision, right? You take a yellow card and everybody moves on from that. VAR is meant to come into play where there's a clear and obvious error by the referee, i.e. he's missed it or he's not seen an element of the tackle or whatever it may be. But VAR's get involved here when the referee has dealt with the incident. You know, he's flashed the red, he's dealt with it, and we're all ready to move on. And what you've got today is a situation where Don Robertson was the referee in inverted commas. I don't think Don Robertson refereed that game for the most part, certainly when it came to the key decisions. And actually, if I'm been feeling really generous, Brydo, and I'm not sure if I do, I feel sorry for Don Robertson and any of the other refs in those positions because he's making all these calls in play like all refs should, like you're trained to do, like you've done all your refereeing career. And then you've got the voice in your ear saying, aye, there's a wee niggly thing, hold on, we need to check this. And before you know it, the VAR takes over and you've got so Yang plays 15 minutes, he misses effectively the full game, give or take, because of a flick of his boot. And then you get various robust tackles all across the park. Let's look at the tackle that is it Mackenzie Tate made right at the end there on Alistair Johnson. How, in any sort of sense of football, just put the players in neutral strips, take away Celtic, Rangers, Hearts, Hibs, whatever, and get somebody to watch tackle 1 from Yang, tackle 2 from Mackenzie Tate, and say what one of them deserves to go off, what one of them makes the game better or worse if those kind of tackles are encouraged. And it's his all day long. He's gone in late when Alistair Johnson's off balance, whereas Yang tries to flick a ball over a head and he goes off. It cannot make any sense. It's sore for us today because it's gone against Celtic, but it's going against everybody. There's all sorts of teams, you know, experiencing poor decisions. I think St Mirren had a bad one earlier on in the season. And, you know, as I say, you know, we're obviously covering this from a Celtic angle, but just as a football fan, it's draining the life out of the game. Penalties that aren't penalties, reds that aren't reds, finding reasons to chop off goals that shouldn't be chopped off. Goals are what football are all about. And VAR has basically come in to say, can we make less goals in football? Can we find a reason to take goals away from teams and fans? I can't get on board with it, Brydo. Sore for us today, but there's a bigger picture thing at play.
Oh yeah, I mean the standard of refereeing in our country is abysmal, absolutely abysmal. And what do you do if you add an extra official at VAR with another abysmal take on things? It's just going to get even worse. That decision. See, after the penalty was missed, sometimes you just get these wee feelings, and you're like, "Oh no, why are they taking so long? Why are they taking so long?" And then you're thinking they're going to do something here. Then you watch and you're like, "Nah, surely not, surely not." I don't feel sorry for Don Robertson. I know what you mean, but I don't feel sorry for him. He can still go to the video and look at it and go, "Nah, you're off your head, John Beaton. Listen, John, let's not make it too obvious here. You know, like it's not a red card because it's not a red card. To send somebody off the field of play has to be quite a big thing, I think. You know, you have to be really looking to deliberately try and do something to hurt somebody. You get innocuous ones where you have sympathy for players, but if their foot's too high and it catches a player high or whatever, we've seen these ones, particularly down south, where the players try to protect the ball and goes over the ball and catches the defending player on the shin or whatever, and they go down. You feel sorry for players in that sense. This one's not even like that. I mean, I would hark back to, do you remember the Aberdeen defender absolutely crucified Kyogo? Remember when he went through the back of him and he was knocked out before he hits the ground? That wasn't even a foul.
Yeah.
That wasn't even a foul. He didn't crack the boy's skull. He had no right to go for the ball. He was never winning it. He smashes into him, knowing that, again, like you said, he's played football, watched football for long enough, knowing that Kyogo's just going to flick it on and the game moves on. It's a nothing area of the park for anybody. And he's absolutely done him to put the ball out for a goal kick and smashed his head, knocked him out. That wasn't even a foul. So the levels of, if that's not even a foul, how can that be a red card? That's the highest point. It's madness. And it ruined what's normally a good game. I mean, it's normally a good game. It ruined the game, certainly from our perspective. But I'll say that because that's exactly how I feel about it. But I'm not using that as an excuse today. I feel we could still do a lot more in the game.
Yeah.
Decisions like that are just can't. Kevin Clancy gave a penalty to Hearts midweek. Now, I can see why maybe he thinks it's a penalty, right? Initially, but then looks at it on a video, and he still gives a penalty for it. That's telling you that the way they think about the decisions is completely so far away from where we are as fans, supporters, players. Madness. Shankland, I just caught his interview there, and he was asked about it, and he said, "From my view, I thought it was really harsh," and that's a professional player who's got a benefit from it. But he's saying, yeah, I think that was pretty harsh. And ultimately, we've missed an opportunity. And that was a big, massive part of it. But I do think that we could have still done more to certainly not lose the game.
Yeah, there's definitely there's a long part of the game that goes. I say it's 16 minutes in when that happens, and there's a long way to get a foothold back in the game. What I would say, though, from a Celtic point of view, is that it completely changes how you approach the game. Apart from anything else, we're talking pre-match. Yang all of a sudden is a man in form, high in confidence, probably picked up, albeit he's not been at Celtic long, but the best form in his short Celtic career so far. He's an absolute outball for us today. He'll have been a huge part of the prep all week. And then you come into a game, and we're already Callum McGregor down, and we know that. And then you lose Yang, and it just completely changes everything that you can do. It means that your midfield three, Matt O'Reilly in particular, is just having to do the work of two men, and it really stretches things. As I said, it nullifies our press. It makes it easier for Hearts to press. And you might have heard it in commentary, but it's something that you'll certainly be aware of, Brydo. When you've got 11v10, your big advantage is your width and how often you can stretch your opposition by switching it and just, pulling them into the left and going out to the right, pull them to the right and get out to the left. And that's how to play 11v10. And I thought Hearts, started to do that pretty well. I can make my peace with Adam Ida or anybody missing a penalty because you think, okay, that's fine, we'll get other chances. But once the sending off happens, it's going to be a long afternoon, and kind of played out almost as you'd expect it to do so.
Yeah, it did. I just thought we were, not the whole game, but just far too many large parts of the game. I just thought we were too passive. I get to half time maybe. They put Maida up front next to Ida, which was fine. But then they're causing a bit of problems, like you said, out wide. So Maida then got dropped back. We actually scored a decent goal. They got chopped off, obviously, in that period as well. But then Maida dropped back, which I thought was the right thing to do, 4-4-1. Ida could hold the ball up, and then you could try and get Bernardo and O'Reilly to get as close to him as possible. It didn't really work out like that. That's a completely different way to how we normally play, of course, but we need to adapt. But we just didn't do enough, and it was partly down to when we did get the ball, we didn't play the pass forward early enough, but the quality just wasn't there. There's too many players with bad touches, and Taylor I thought he had a shocker actually, and I didn't think Iwata did the job well. Abaningame, obviously, he was a bit swamped when we changed the shape. They had a lot more bodies in the middle because O'Reilly and was Bernardo at that time. And then obviously when Kyogo comes on, that makes it even harder for Iwata and O'Reilly, who were kind of left. And O'Reilly was trying to find the places out wide. So again, it made it hard for Iwata. So there's maybe a wee bit of sympathy there. But there was times, no pressure. He's got the ball on the left-hand side for the left back. We've done a really good wee move to break it up, to get out the press. And he puts it out the park. And I know it's not massive, and I know it's not game-changing, but that happened far too often, which then just didn't allow us to build up sustained attacks enough. Hearts are not great at the back. You know, they're not great. I was talking to 2 Hearts fans yesterday, and they were really worried. They thought that we were starting to brim with confidence, and we were scoring a lot of goals. And they thought that Ida would cause them a lot of problems. I thought he had a really good game. But those that I could say had a good game are probably few and far between. In that, you know, we weren't in their face. You know, we didn't grab it by the scruff of the neck. And even with 10 men, you can still do that. You know, get them involved in a bit of a fight. Get one of their players sent off. Do whatever. I just don't think we laid a glove on them, really. And I think that's a regret.
Yeah, it's got to be. And there's a comment here from, sorry, not Jim Irvin, from Colin Stewart, and he's basically saying when we went a man down, the attitude and ability of some of our players was disappointing, and I've got to agree with that. Yes, you go down, you know, to 10 men, and it's frustrating, and you know you're up against it. You need to respond to that. I find it hard on one hand to criticise the team because you know that you're on a real tough afternoon when that happens, but I also think you need to see something. You need to see a reaction. You need to see a roll the sleeves up type. Okay, if we're going to go down, we're going to go down fighting. And I don't think we went down scrapping, Brydo. I'd have to say that. There's a few players we've got to cover, and I think Tomoki Iwata's, you know, certainly a guy that's been in the conversation the last week or so, given his impact in the first team. I'm a big fan. I think he's a talented guy, but he get caught several times today, and we can get excited when guys are doing well, and we're right to do so. And I'm not going to listen to folks saying, "Oh, don't get carried away" and all that stuff. If a guy's played well and you've enjoyed it, you can call it out, and that's absolutely fine. I think he's a talented player, but he's been off it today. He learned from today, but unfortunately he's had to learn, you know, during a game where Celtic have failed to pick up the win because he was slack. We'll get to Hearts' called off goal in a minute, the offside one, but he's daydreaming. There's a real good chance actually for Celtic to break. They're one of the few chances to break, and he dreams on it. And it's not been a good day for Tomoki Iwata at all. But others around him, Maeda's struggled again with the technical ability. He does been isolated. Taylor and Scales, I thought, weren't driving us forward, and you know, various other things. Let's get to the Hearts goal and the second penalty of the afternoon. You might have seen some of the stuff Brydo shared around Twitter about the interpretation of the rules. I'll maybe dig them out while you're responding here, but what was your take, first of all? Nobody in Tynecastle was claiming for a penalty, apart from John Beaton. He probably had his hand up in the VAR room thinking, hold on a minute, ref, or hold on, I'm the ref. We can do something here. Again, this isn't sour grapes because it's Celtic, but if that's penalties and Yang sending off as a sending off, then where is the game going at all? I can't believe they've found a way to make that a penalty kick.
It's just mind-boggling, mate, to be honest. I mean, I seen the Rangers manager talking about it midweek. He said far too much to say, but some of the stuff he says is actually legitimate. I seen the highlights of their game, and their game was the same. You know, there's a handball given against Rangers, and then there's 2 not given for them on the pitch. It just didn't make sense. Don Robertson was the referee when the very first VAR was there at Tynecastle, I believe. Right. And that was the handball that he gave against Greg Taylor, I think it was, but he didn't give it against the boy at the right back, Michael Smith, which is who moves his hand to the ball and then panics and then tries to chop his arm off. That challenge, so again, I hate harping back to if you've played football or whatever, but we all need to understand that part. There's hustling and there's bustling. So if you're to stand still, yeah, okay, your arms would be at your side. But it's not table football. They're not rigid. It's like they need to move about. Not only that, if somebody's barsed into your back, which, okay, was our own player, Johnson, they're challenging for the ball at a cross ball. It's going to happen. There's far bigger fouls happen that don't even get looked at than the ball bouncing off the back of somebody's arm who's facing the other way. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous that they don't see it because there's so many bodies. But then to go and bring that back, like to get a penalty, you're essentially saying to another team, the foul that was given stopped you getting a goal. That's what happens. You get a penalty, you're essentially giving a team a goal. Are you telling me that's worthy of giving Hearts a goal? That it's not even a challenge. It's nothing. There's nothing in it, and to give that, it just reeks of incompetence at best. By the way, incompetence at best.
Yeah,
and it's madness. It's madness. Mad.
You've spoken there about for a red card, Brydo. Generally speaking, in football, and you know, when they were making up the rules of football and talking about what would constitute a red card and what should be a penalty, it should be pretty serious for somebody to get a red card. To eject somebody from the game, to say there's 22 players here and we're taking one of them out, it should be something pretty serious, right? Just as an overarching mindset to why someone should be ejected from the game, to use that American sounding terminology. And for a penalty kick, maybe it doesn't have to be equally serious, but it should be something which is a notable prevention of a goal scoring opportunity in the box. You know, completely accidental, couldn't do it if you tried handballs when the ball's falling out the sky on the edge of the box in a busy area. If that is a penalty, then we're absolutely snookered. There's a ruling. So the ruling from IFAB has been doing the rounds there on Twitter since the penalty was given. So it says here on IFAB's site, what happens if a player is hit on the hand or arm by a ball from a teammate's kick or header? So if you're looking at the ball coming off Alistair Johnson or wherever it came and it's landed on Tomoki Iwata's arm. Response to that is, this is not a handball unless the ball goes directly into the opponent's goal or the player scores immediately afterwards, in which case a direct free kick is awarded to the other team. And the problem with some of the rules doing the rounds is they become subjective, and then it's almost like and I'm not saying John Beaton v Celtic or any ref v Celtic, it's almost like all VAR refs, there's some shockers down south as well. It's almost like all VAR guys are going, we can't get them in that wee technicality. What about Rule 36, John? Have you checked Rule 36? Aye, right, we'll try that. And it's like they're handpicking various reasons to give all these just spurious penalty kicks. I've not heard Brendan Rodgers' comments. You know, we've obviously just come live onto it. But he or any other football guy can't be happy with that. You're happy when you get the benefit, and Stephen A. Smith will be happy with that this afternoon. If he loses a similar one next week, he's cracking up. So you've got to take it off with the smooth and all that stuff the way it is. But actually, I'd far rather if more football guys got together and at the top of the game there was a think tank. I believe there is a thing at the top of the game where you've got various ex-pros. Is Larson involved? There's various ex-Italians and different things helping, inverted commas, make the rulings better. But ultimately they're not getting them better, because you can't tell me football as a game has been better since the introduction of all these crazy rules. Anyway, do you know what? I'm spending too much time on VAR, Brydo. Hearts get the penalty, Hearts score the penalty, and we're climbing a mountain. It's very nearly 2-0 at half-time with that offside goal. And that is margins as well, by the way, but it is offside if you're, that's binary. That's yes or no. You draw the lines, it's off or it's not. You're not asking for somebody's opinion. But we go in 1-0 down. How are you feeling at that point? You and I messaged. I'm still hopeful at that point that Celtic can go in and regroup. 2-0, tall order. 1-0, okay. Let's reset. Let's see where we are. Let's make some tactical tweaks. But how are you feeling in general about what lay ahead in the second half?
Yeah, it was... The interesting fact there was that I knew we had players on the bench that could perhaps come on and do something, Kyogo being one of them. I just felt that change was made a bit early, I think. But at the time, I felt, you know what, with that goal getting chopped off, we still had a shout. Other things can happen in the game. There can be red cards for a Hearts player or whatever before you know it. But my main feeling was, don't lose the game. Just don't lose the game. And we still had a big shout to not lose the game. Our players are good enough, I think, to certainly get a goal against Hearts and not concede. But ultimately, we didn't and couldn't do that. So, I felt okay at half time. Obviously frustrated and angry, but when Kyogo came on, I thought, right, okay, we're giving it a go quite early, which you're kind of all right, but it just didn't, like I said earlier, it didn't give us we lost the midfield battle pretty early on, and we were, like I said, feeding off scraps.
Yeah, do you know, I understand the thinking about giving you an extra option up front, and Kyogo did have an impact to an extent, and him and Ida linked up at different times, but ultimately you're sacrificing your midfield. We were already light in midfield. I was clearly struggling and feeling the pressure of that. Bernardo, actually, I've not really mentioned him. He'd kind of a nothing game for me, Brydo. Just didn't have any impact. Didn't have any bearing on the game. And this is a guy who's had to kick his heels the last few weeks. And I think the guy's a talent. And I think, we'll need to look at where we're at come summer. But he's somebody we should consider signing. But he's got to bring something more to the party when he does get the opportunities. Opportunities at Celtic should be few and far between. It shouldn't be a given to get minutes in a Celtic shirt. And there's a situation where Callum McGregor, your captain, misses out, and all of a sudden he's cast into the team. He's got to do more, but he's failed in that front. and he's the one that's replaced at half-time. So yeah, I understand the Kyogo move, but maybe that's when you keep in your locker for the last half hour. You try and, bed your way back into the game, show yourself as a wee bit more robust, and see if you can catch something later on in proceedings. But the midfield was really, really stretched. And as I said earlier, we actually couldn't get out our own half, generally speaking, let alone have an impact at the final third.
Yeah, I think you're right about Bernard. I think don't get me wrong, after 15 minutes, they're down to 10 minutes, so it's quite difficult for them in there to impact the game as much as they would with 11 men. So it's hard to kind of judge, but the games change all the time. So, things happen in game. You need to have the ability to deal with that. And if the game or the tactics change, then you've got to have the ability to deal with that too. When the game passes you by and you're not involving yourself in the game, then either one, you don't want to and you're hiding, or two, maybe you've not got the ability to read the game and see that and do that, or three, you're being sacrificed by the manager to do a job and perhaps you're not involved in the game. Either way, you've got to do something productive for the team, whether it's running harder, whether it's winning big tackles, headers, free kicks up in the other half to buy us some territory in their half, that type of thing. Yeah, do something. But you're right, that was his chance to do that today, and I think we really, really, really missed our captain massively, especially when we were down to 10 men.
Yeah, I done the pre-match. What day is this? Sunday? On Friday. Done the pre-match on Friday with Paddy. And we knew at that point that Callum McGregor was struggling, and it was looking in all likelihood that he wasn't going to make it. So we kind of discussed what the team was going to look like. I think to a man we called it spot on, which is no rocket science based on the options we had available. And I suggested that I thought, yes, no doubt it's a blow losing Callum McGregor, but there should have been enough in that midfield with experienced guys like, Matt O'Reilly, Carter-Vickers taking the armband, Joe Hart at the back, Greg Taylor back in, Alistair Johnson finding a bit of form. There was enough leaders back in the team for me to feel less worried about it. And hindsight's a great thing, but I think you're right. You can see that there was a chips down situation for Celtic. Who's going to grab it by the scruff of the neck, rally the teammates, reassure them as well. Callum McGregor's been there and done it. He's been to Tynecastle when your goal's behind. He's been in all of these places. He's been in these environments, whereas some of his teammates haven't. Bernardo's not experienced it. It's even new for guys like Adam Ida and Tomoko Iwata and various others. And I think we did miss his leadership there. And that's the thing, for Celtic, we've asked the question at times, should Callum McGregor be dropped, rested, whatever term you want to use? And it's always debated back and forward. But the additional element is it's not just what he's providing as a player. He's the captain. He's the captain for a reason. And yeah, it is a worrying sign, though, if you can't adjust without him, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's definitely worrying. But the thing that it's quite a hard thing to deal with, because if you're signing players that have the quality to come in and we don't miss Callum McGregor, then, we'll need to spend a fair whack of money on them, and we just won't do that for a player who predominantly won't play. So it's difficult for us to do that. I think for one or two games, I think the record, I think you said we won the last 10 games without him, but I don't know who they're against. But I believe we've won the last 10 that he didn't play. But it was different today. I don't remember any big games like Tynecastle or Ibrox when he wasn't there. So yeah, you're right. He's done it, been there, led the team, or was part of a kind of experienced team. Even the game at Ibrox that we all famously enjoyed when Edouard banged it in. But it is a bit of a concern that the players that came in today, and again, I stress that it is hard to judge when you're 10 versus 11. But you can still do more. And those players, and Iwata had that job to do. We gave him the praise the other day, the last couple of games, which was fair. But just that getting caught in the ball that led to the disallowed goal, that's the concern.
Yeah.
That's the concern about Iwata. That is it right there. Physically good. His attributes are quite good. His energy's there. But I watched him quite closely after that, and he didn't really demand the ball from the centre halves enough. He didn't want to. He was the one that had to take it by the scruff of the neck to say, "It's all right. I'll do an extra bit of running. I'll get involved. I'll take it with a man right up my jacks if you want." I'll do that, no problem. But everybody else needs to kind of go with me on it. And he didn't do it. Hiding might be a bit too much. Maybe he wasn't hiding for the deliberately or whatever, but he certainly didn't back himself to be that person today. And ultimately at Tynecastle against a half decent side, 10 men, you need everybody. And I felt we had actually as many passengers as we did the other way. So
non-passengers. I don't think I agree. I don't think he was hiding, but he went into his shell. You know, the anxiety crept in, and he clammed up a wee bit. And as I say, I think over the piece, he's a talented guy. I think he can do a really good job for Celtic, but he'll need to improve on things like today. You know, that's the challenge. Some people are saying, you're getting a bit carried away. It's only Dundee. And I fully accepted both things can be true. He was excellent against Dundee, but there's also bigger challenges around the corner. Both of those things can be true. So there's, you don't need to be criticising a guy because it was only Dundee. He played well. You can only play what's in front of you. But how do you adapt to the next challenge? And there's no doubt whether it's 11v10 or 11v11, Tynecastle's a different challenge. And you'd have to say he didn't pass that test today. And likewise, because Celtic are a man short, that's not a reason why he dilly-dallies in the ball. That shouldn't affect him dilly-dallying. It's not a reason why Maeda's letting the ball run under his studs. Liam Scales letting it run under his studs in the last 5 minutes when you're chasing a winner. Callum McGregor, Greg Taylor, the ball bouncing off him at times. Doesn't matter what's going on before. You as a footballer should be capable of doing some of these basic things better. And that's where the frustration comes in. And that's where I think we've got to find the balance here between being too critical. My balance is that you cannot be overly critical of Celtic today based on the fact that from 16 minutes in, you're climbing an absolute mountain there. But you can criticise to an extent where there's other things. You might have done the other things well and still get beat. And that's a frustration, we'll never know. But we then, following the sending off, just didn't manage to get to grips with anything at all. And again, you're getting in, it's a title race. It's a now 9 games to go situation. And I don't think we pressed enough at any stage in the game. But I know the second goal obviously kills it. It's Shankland that gets it. And again, it's a wee bit scrappy in the box. I've not watched it back. I've not seen many replays of it apart from at the time. Is it a bit slack all round? Is Taylor a bit slack in the first instance before it breaks to Shankland? What do you think?
I think the boy's actually slipped and then it's spun off. He's kicked down, he's fell, and it's fell to Shankland in the best way possible, just slightly off the ground. He can just fizz that into the bottom corner, and it's fell to the one player in their team that could do that. So there's probably a bit of misfortune there as well. Like we said, the shape does change. There's a lot of running in there. If you think about that I wouldn't mind seeing the amount of miles that Matt O'Reilly covered today. I felt like he was the one player that, not just the only one, but I'd say definitely get pass marks in regards to his effort. He seemed to always be the one that wanted the ball. So if you think in that midfield, essentially that's where they're going to break, and it breaks to the edge of the box, and Shankland tucks it away. I just think when you're chasing it with 10 men, perhaps you leave gaps. They get a bit lucky. We defend it okay in the end, but I think it's actually Carter-Vickers who's actually with Shankland initially. And when the ball goes to the other player, slips, he falls, but Carter-Vickers not expecting him to slip and fall and pass it back, and he's standing free at the edge of the box in a perfect position, really. So these things happen in the games. Shankland took it. Ida didn't take our half chances when we got one, when it bounced off their defender. Big moments in the game, and Shankland's one of the top finishers in the country. He scores it, and our player doesn't. They scored a penalty, our player doesn't. And that's the things you can maybe go away from the officials and VAR and stuff. They did it when they had to do it today, and we didn't do it. And ultimately, that's what we're going to be judged on at the end of the season. Did we take enough of the big moments in the big games? And we've got some absolute massive games coming up, and we need to make sure we do.
Yeah, and you're spot on with that point. There's things that were in our gift today to do better, and we've fallen short. And the individuals involved, whether it's Adam Ida with the penalty, Awata with his performance, and anyone else that wants to look in the mirror after that game, there's definitely things they can improve on. And I hope they've got the character to take on the chin, and move on from it. There's not much else to cover in terms of the game itself, Brydo, but I'll bring up a comment from Joseph Agnew. And hello to Joseph. He's a big follower of the show, he always comments, and he says, he highlights that Brendan Rodgers only used 2 subs and questions why. And it's a really valid point. Your guys are tired. You're chasing the game from 16 minutes in, and yet it's only Kyogo that comes on at half time, and then young Daniel Kelly for Iwata a bit later on. Fresh legs could certainly have helped, I would think. But I'm a defender of Rodgers. I don't need to repeat it here. Anyone that listens knows that I'm a fan of what he brings. But you'd have to say there's got to be a good argument for fresh legs, at least in the last 20 minutes, half an hour, given you've chased the game for most of it.
Yeah, do you know something? Maybe like you, I didn't even clock that. I probably should have if we're doing a review of a game or a podcast, but I never even know. I didn't really register with me. Do you know probably why? Because in the game it wasn't much I was thinking, oh, he could come on and do something, or he could come on and do something. I wasn't thinking that. That's probably says more about the players on the bench. The only one I was thinking about did come on, and that was a young boy, Kelly. Why does he not use them? As if I don't know. I really don't know. I'd like somebody to ask him. Your players, especially the likes of O'Reilly and things. Aye, that's bizarre. I never gave it a thought, so I don't really have an answer, to be honest with you. I just, now I'm thinking about it, why wouldn't we do that? Well, the only thing I can think is he doesn't think the players would have added to that system that he had at that time, which clearly wasn't working because we hadn't scored. So
I'll give you a get out, given that you had a lot on your mind at the time. You've had a lot to think about over the last hour and a half or so. But there were options on the bench that you can debate them, but could have had an impact. You've got Nicholas Kuhn now. I don't think he's done well for Celtic at all so far, but he's got pace. And if you're looking for a roll of the dice, a Hail Mary, call it what you want, then he might have been an option. Louis Palma's similar. He's been off for him, but we know he's got talent. We know he's got something to offer. And maybe to a lesser extent, Odin Thiago Holm, who we know can be quite lively in and around the midfield. But yeah, it's a good question from Joseph. Thanks for chipping in with it, because it is a question you've got to ask of the manager. You can't. It's not Brendan Rodgers' fault the sending off happened and other things, but it's in his gift again. As I say, Ida had the option, the penalty. Different players have had the option in terms of how they play. Rodgers has had the option in terms of making some changes, which, for his own reasons, he's not gone with. So that's where we find ourselves. Brydo, let's move away from the game. You'll be delighted to hear we can stick that in the bin. That one's done. It's now 9 games to go. We are where we were before the weekend. Give or take. This is the position we're in. You and I spoke after the Dundee game, and I'm paraphrasing you here, but you said something along the lines of, we'll get to this weekend, Rangers won't drop points, I expect Celtic will go and win at Hearts, and we'll be 2 points in it still, and we can still go to Ibrox and impact things from that point of view. You highlighted, Brydo, on, when was that, Thursday we spoke, that Celtic's running is slightly more favourable, and I suppose, listen, you can get doom and gloom about a game like today if you want, and I can understand that. I'm okay with it. I get seriously pissed off at different times, but I'm okay with this one today because I can see there's a bigger picture here and that we've not blown it at this moment in time. Yes, it was a huge opportunity, and yes, it's sore that we never took it. But this title is earthly taken, and ultimately it is still in Celtic's own hands. We're not requiring snookers. We don't need Rangers to go and lose to other teams. We can go and have that impact. We've got Rangers to play twice, and it's within our gift to do so. But where are you at, generally speaking, bigger picture? And what do you think about our revised hopes for the title?
I just think it's a real chance missed today. Obviously, that goes without saying, because to go a point ahead, what that does is, if it was to stay the same before we play at Ibrox, even if we get beat at Ibrox, we've still got the Celtic Park to kind of balance that out, and that the pressure on them at Ibrox is massive if we get a point ahead. Massive, because they know if they don't win that game, that's it. Well, some might think it's done. So that's that would have been the best situation sitting here just now, after matching their result and getting beat. And it is what it is. Then they'll stand by exactly what I said on Thursday. Then it's there's one fewer, there's one less game though. It's like it's getting closer and closer, and there's less room for error. And I don't think there's much room for error at all now, really. But it's an opportunity missed, and we won't get many more. and we need to make sure that we pounce on that. Stuff happened, makes it harder, but we both in game and then as a team, we need to take those big moments in the games when they come, especially our forward-thinking players. They have to score those goals. They have to score the penalties. They have to take those half chances when it's going against us. And as a team, as a club, collectively, we need to make sure that we do what we need to do, no matter how hard it is. And there'll be some question marks that some fans have got over that today. Do they have the bottle and stuff? I think they do. Personally, I think they do. But today just wasn't very good.
Yeah, there's no getting away from that. And 100%, it's an opportunity lost. And I'm certainly not trying to dress it up as anything but that. But the bottom line is, it's still in our hands. There's a comment from Kevy Boy in the comments who said there was no room for error before the game. FFS. So read that as it is. Of course there was room for error because we did error. We lost the game and we're still in it. So it's not like today was the last chance saloon. But I get the bigger picture. As I say, it's a sore one. There's no joy in going to a place, particularly Hearts, actually, if I'm being frank about it. But Celtic now have to pick themselves up, Brydo. You can do one or two things. You can feel sorry for yourself and say, woulda, coulda, shoulda, opportunity lost, woe is me, woe is us, what we're going to do. Or you can actually go and do something about it, as players, as fans, as whatever. Defeated stuff won't get you anywhere. Throwing in the towel at any stage won't get you anywhere. And Celtic are well in this race. But it's now up to Brendan Rodgers and the players to regroup and motivate. They've got a cup game now, so we've got Livy next weekend, haven't we? And actually, after a result like today, you'd be keen to crack right back onto the league stuff. But it is what it is. The Scottish Cup's obviously got its part to play. But what do you think the message is now, Brydo? So they'll be back at Lennoxtown tomorrow, I presume. What do you think the message is from Rodgers and the players? How do you think they'll be feeling? And what do you think the approach will be in the few days ahead?
That if we're going to win the league, we're not going to get any help off anybody else. We've got to do it ourselves. That siege mentality, if you like. Nobody's going to help. They're going to try and trip us up wherever we can. Whether that's true or not, that's what I'll be telling the players. Everyone's going to take great joy if you don't win. Everybody likes to laugh at us when we don't win or we get beat. They want to criticise wherever they can. They want to have a go at the manager for saying certain things. They want to do this, they want to do that. Continuously, they want to do that and create a negative vibe or agenda about what we're trying to do. So therefore, the only way to beat anything like that is just to get it right up them and basically and go. And you need, if you don't, I said this a few weeks ago, if you can't win by playing well, you need to fight. You need to be in a dog fight. You need to batter the person in front of you and get the result. And we just lacked that today. And that is a concern, though. That is a concern that we didn't do that in that big moment. But that's the message. The message is, if you're having a poor game, just keep running. Keep running, keep pulling, keep shoving, keep grabbing. It'll come. We've got good players around you if you're having a bad day. But you can't just be like, give up. And I think some players gave up on themselves. Not necessarily gave up, I don't care. They gave up doing the things that make us successful or have shown us to be successful. And that is forward passes, aggression in our play, pressing as hard and as high up as we possibly can. And we didn't do that. There's too many of them didn't do that today. And we needed everybody. We're down to 10 men. We needed absolutely everybody to do it. In fact, we needed it 11 v 11. Yeah. So we certainly needed it when that. If you could give extra, give it. Players that can run faster and harder, do it. Maida, to be fair, the ball at his feet, hopeless. But, if I've got to talk about running and energy, then he did it. O'Reilly did it. Ida did it. But in the big moments, we can't let it happen. So when somebody says there's no room for error before, well, like you said, yeah, there was, but there's not much now, if any. So That's the pressure. The pressure's on now, mate.
I'd agree with that, and Kevy Boy makes a good point, but there's to your point there, Brydo, we're certainly running out of games and running out of mistakes that we can make. 9 games to go. I'm pretty sure we had the conversation with 13 games to go, given it the whole 13 cup finals, lads. And then it was 12, 11, 9 cup finals, lads. And this is where we find ourselves. So we'll need to just keep revising. Football's a movable feast, Brydo. Things change week on week, game on game, and that's just where we find ourselves. Brian, thanks for joining us today, particularly on a Sunday. Thanks to everyone. I'm saying everyone. Thanks to most folk in the chat. Some absolute wallopers from the other side of town in the chat, but that's up to them. Clearly not got much better to do with their afternoon. But thanks to the decent-minded folk that have joined us there. Thanks, of course, to everyone that continues to listen on the podcast. We'll be back again tomorrow, Monday night, with the Celtic Exchange Weekly, as always. But in the meantime, as best you can, enjoy the rest of your weekend.